Wife left husband with 3 children and a fruit stand. I found someone at my level. Please subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, and comment where you're watching from. The fine rain fell over the small town of Greenfield Valley, transforming the dirt ground into mud that stuck to boots. Sarah Williams, only 32 years old, held a worn suitcase in one hand and her racing heart in the other. It was 5 in the morning on a Tuesday in March, and the house was still wrapped in the silence that comes before dawn breaks and life resumes its relentless pace. Sarah had been planning this moment for 8 long months. 8 months of secret phone calls, hidden messages, and carefully constructed lies. 8 months since she met David Carter at the Regional Farmers Market Conference in Chicago. David was everything Michael wasn't. Sophisticated, wealthy, wearing expensive suits that never smelled of citrus or had dirt under the fingernails. He drove a black BMW, lived in a penthouse apartment, and promised Sarah a life she had only seen in magazines. "You're too beautiful, too intelligent to be wasting away in this small town," David had whispered during one of their clandestine meetings at a hotel 2 towns over. "Come with me to Chicago. I can give you everything you've always dreamed of. Designer clothes, fine restaurants, travel to Europe. You deserve someone at your level, not a man who smells like fruit juice every day." Those words had planted a seed in Sarah's mind, a seed that grew into a consuming desire for escape. She looked around the modest house she had shared with Michael for 10 years, at the hand-me-down furniture, the peeling wallpaper in the kitchen, the children's toys scattered across the worn carpet. This wasn't the life she had imagined for herself when she was young and full of dreams. In the master bedroom, Michael slept deeply, exhausted from another 14-hour day at the fruit stand. His hands, permanently stained from handling countless oranges, apples, and pears, lay peacefully on the pillow. Beside him, 4-year-old Tommy had crawled into their bed sometime during the night, his small body curled against his father's side like a little koala bear. Down the hallway, 7-year-old Emma slept clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, the one Sarah had sewn for her 3rd birthday from fabric scraps. In the next room, 9-year-old Jake lay sprawled across his twin bed, his math homework still spread across his desk, where he had fallen asleep working on it the night before. These children, her children, had once been her whole world. But somewhere along the way they had become anchors weighing her down instead of wings lifting her up. Sarah moved through the house like a ghost, collecting the last of her belongings. She had been slowly moving her things out over the past month, taking a few items at a time so Michael wouldn't notice. Her jewelry box, her favorite books, the silk scarf her mother had given her before she died. Each item represented a piece of her identity that didn't belong in this small-town life. She paused in the kitchen, looking at the note she had written and rewritten a dozen times. The words seemed harsh in the dim light, but they were honest. She couldn't pretend anymore that she was happy being the wife of a fruit vendor, living paycheck to paycheck, wearing the same 3 dresses to every social function in town. The note read, "Michael, I can't live this life anymore. I found someone at my level who doesn't smell like fruit juice all day. The house is paid until the end of the month. After that, figure it out with these kids. Don't try to find me. This is for the best. Sarah." She placed the note on the kitchen table next to the coffee maker that Michael would use in just a few hours when he woke up to prepare for another day at the fruit stand. The same routine he had followed for the past 7 years, ever since he took over the business from his father. At exactly 6 in the morning, Sarah heard the rumble of the Greyhound bus approaching the stop 3 blocks away. She grabbed her suitcase, took one last look at the house where she had spent the last decade of her life, and walked out the front door without looking back. The bus ride to Chicago took 4 hours. As Greenfield Valley disappeared behind her, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and guilt churning in her stomach. She tried to focus on the future David had painted for her. The penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, the shopping trips to New York, the dinner parties with influential people. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Tommy's chubby cheeks, Emma's gap-toothed smile, Jake's serious expression when he was concentrating on his homework. By 10 in the morning, she was in David's arms in his luxurious apartment, telling herself that she had made the right choice, that her children would be better off without a mother who resented her life, that Michael was strong enough to handle everything on his own. She was wrong on all counts. Michael Williams woke up at 7 in the morning to the sound of Tommy crying for his mother. It was a typical Tuesday, or so he thought. He reached across the bed for Sarah, but his hand found only cold sheets and an empty pillow. Strange. Sarah was always up before him, getting breakfast ready and organizing the children's school clothes. "Sarah?" he called out, his voice thick with sleep. "Honey, where are you?" Silence answered him back, broken only by Tommy's increasingly urgent cries for Mama from the bedroom doorway. Michael sat up, running his hands through his hair. Maybe Sarah had gone to the grocery store early, though that would be unusual for a Tuesday morning. He picked up Tommy, whose diaper was soaked and whose little face was red from crying. "It's okay, buddy. Daddy's here. Let's get you cleaned up, and then we'll find Mama." As Michael changed Tommy's diaper, his mind began to register small details that seemed off. Sarah's side of the closet looked emptier than usual. Her jewelry box was gone from the dresser. The family photo that usually sat on her nightstand was missing. Down the hallway, Emma appeared in her doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Her curly hair was tangled from sleep, and she was wearing the pink pajamas with unicorns that Sarah had bought her for Christmas. "Daddy, where's Mommy? She always makes my hair pretty for school." "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe she had to run an errand." "Can you help me get Tommy some breakfast while I figure this out?" Jake emerged from his room, already dressed in his school clothes with mathematical precision. Even at 9 years old, he was remarkably organized and responsible, often acting more mature than his age suggested. "Dad, Mom's car is still in the driveway, but her suitcase isn't in the closet anymore," Jake said with the matter-of-fact tone he used when presenting his observations. Michael's stomach dropped. He carried Tommy to the kitchen, Emma following close behind, all of them drawn together by an instinct they couldn't yet name. That's when Michael saw it. The white piece of paper folded neatly next to the coffee maker, his name written on the outside in Sarah's familiar handwriting. With trembling hands, he unfolded the note and read it once, twice, 3 times. Each reading made the words more real and more devastating. Sarah was gone. She had left them for another man, someone she considered at her level, someone who didn't smell like fruit juice. The paper fluttered to the floor as Michael's legs gave out. He sank into one of the kitchen chairs, staring at the wall where Sarah's shopping lists and family photos had hung just yesterday. Tommy climbed into his lap, sensing something was wrong but not understanding what. "Daddy crying?" Tommy asked, patting Michael's cheek with his small hand. Emma picked up the note from the floor. Her reading skills advanced enough to make out most of the words. Her face crumpled as the meaning became clear. "Mommy left us," she whispered, the note shaking in her hands. Jake read over his sister's shoulder, his young face hardening with an emotion too complex for his age. "She chose someone else over us." Michael looked at his 3 children. Tommy innocent and confused, Emma heartbroken and scared, Jake angry and protective. In that moment he made a decision that would define the rest of their lives. He would not let Sarah's abandonment destroy them. He would be everything they needed, even if he had no idea how. "Listen to me," Michael said, gathering all 3 children close to him. "Mommy made a choice to leave, but that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. Sometimes grown-ups make decisions that hurt people they love, and we can't always understand why. But what I can promise you is that I will never, ever leave you. We're going to figure this out together, as a family." Emma buried her face in his shoulder, her small body shaking with sobs. Jake stood rigid, his jaw clenched in a way that reminded Michael painfully of his own father. Tommy, still not fully grasping the situation, played with the buttons on Michael's shirt. "Are we going to be okay, Daddy?" Emma asked through her tears. Michael held them tighter, smelling the familiar scent of children's shampoo and knowing that this moment would be burned into his memory forever. "Yes, sweetheart. It's going to be hard, but we're going to be okay. We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be strong." That morning, Michael called the children's schools to explain that they would be absent due to a family emergency. He called his assistant manager at the fruit stand to say he wouldn't be in until later. And then he sat on the living room floor with his children, holding them while they cried, answering their questions as honestly as he could, and beginning the process of rebuilding their world from the ground up. By afternoon, when the initial shock had worn off enough for practical considerations, Michael realized the magnitude of what lay ahead. He was now a single father to 3 young children, with a business to run and bills to pay. Sarah had been the one who managed the household schedule, helped with homework, packed lunches, and handled the countless small tasks that kept a family functioning. But as he looked at his children, Emma trying to comfort Tommy, Jake already planning how he could help more around the house, Michael felt something unexpected stirring in his chest. Not just determination, but a fierce pride in the family they were going to become. The first month after Sarah's departure was like learning to breathe underwater. Every day brought new challenges that Michael had never had to face alone. Getting 3 children ready for school while preparing for a full day at the fruit stand felt like an impossible puzzle with pieces that never quite fit together. Michael's alarm clock went off at 4:30 every morning, giving him barely enough time to shower, dress, and drive to the wholesale produce market on the outskirts of town. The market opened at 5, and the best selection of fruits and vegetables went quickly to vendors who arrived early. Michael would load his pickup truck with crates of apples from Washington State, oranges from Florida, bananas from Guatemala, and whatever seasonal produce looked fresh and affordable. By 6:30, he would race back home to find the children still sleeping. The mornings became a carefully choreographed dance of efficiency born from necessity. Michael would prepare breakfast while simultaneously packing lunches, signing permission slips, and hunting for missing shoes or backpacks. Tommy, at 4 years old, required the most attention. He needed help getting dressed, brushing his teeth, and eating his breakfast without making a mess. He also asked for his mother constantly, breaking Michael's heart a little more each time. "When is Mama coming home?" Tommy would ask, his big brown eyes full of hope and confusion. "Mama isn't coming home, buddy," Michael would answer gently, kneeling down to Tommy's level. "But Daddy is here, and Emma and Jake are here, and we love you very much." Emma, now 7, had taken on responsibilities far beyond her years. She helped Tommy get dressed in the mornings, packed his favorite stuffed animal in his preschool bag, and read him stories when he had nightmares. Her own grief manifested in periods of intense sadness, followed by determined cheerfulness, as if she could single-handedly hold the family together through force of will. Jake, at 9, had become Michael's unofficial partner in managing the household. He made sure his siblings had their homework, helped with dinner preparation, and even learned to do laundry after a particularly chaotic week when they ran out of clean clothes. His childhood was slipping away faster than Michael would have liked, but Jake seemed determined to prove that their family could function without Sarah. The fruit stand itself became both a source of stress and salvation. Michael had been working there since he was 16, first for his father, and then as the owner after his father's retirement 3 years earlier. The business provided just enough income to cover their basic expenses, but there was no room for error or unexpected costs. Every morning, Michael would set up the outdoor displays of fresh produce, arrange the handwritten price signs, and unlock the small shed that served as storage and office space. The stand was located on Maple Street, the main road that connected Greenfield Valley to the county highway. It caught traffic from commuters heading to work in larger towns and locals doing their daily shopping. The children came to the fruit stand directly after school, transforming the small business into an unconventional daycare center. Tommy would nap in a playpen in the office shed, surrounded by boxes of invoices and produce catalogs. Emma would sit at a small table doing her homework, occasionally helping customers who had questions about which apples were best for baking or how to tell if an avocado was ripe. Jake learned to operate the cash register and could calculate change faster than many adults. Regular customers began to notice the changes in the Williams family dynamic. Mrs. Henderson, who bought 2 pounds of tomatoes every Thursday, started bringing homemade cookies for the children. Mr. Rodriguez, who managed the hardware store next door, offered to watch the fruit stand when Michael needed to run errands. Father O'Brien from St. Mary's Catholic Church stopped by regularly, not to buy produce but to check on the family and offer support. "You're doing something remarkable here, Michael," Father O'Brien said one afternoon, watching Jake carefully count money while Emma arranged oranges in a pyramid display. "These children are learning values that will serve them for the rest of their lives." But the nights were the hardest. After closing the stand, making dinner, helping with homework, giving baths and reading bedtime stories, Michael would finally collapse into bed, only to lie awake worrying about money, about whether he was doing right by his children, about the future he was building for them from the ashes of the future he had planned with Sarah. Sometimes, in those dark hours between midnight and dawn, Michael would allow himself to feel the full weight of his anger at Sarah, not just for leaving, but for the cruel way she had done it, for reducing him to someone who smelled like fruit juice, as if honest work was something to be ashamed of, for abandoning children who had never done anything but love her unconditionally. But anger was a luxury he couldn't afford for long. His children needed him to be strong, focused, and positive. They needed to believe that their new life could be just as good as their old one, maybe even better. One evening in late April, as Michael was closing up the fruit stand, Jake approached him with a serious expression. "Dad, I've been thinking," Jake said, his 9-year-old voice carrying the weight of someone much older. "Maybe it's better that Mom left." Michael stopped stacking apple crates and looked at his son with surprise. "What do you mean, buddy? She wasn't happy here. And when people aren't happy, they make everyone around them unhappy too. Now we can be happy without worrying about making her happy." The wisdom in those words, coming from a child who should have been worried about Little League baseball and video games rather than family psychology, nearly brought Michael to tears. He knelt down and pulled Jake into a hug. "You know what, son? I think you might be right." By the time summer arrived, the Williams family had settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable, if not easy. The fruit stand was thriving in ways it never had when Sarah was part of their lives. Without the constant tension of an unhappy spouse, Michael found himself more engaged with customers, more creative in his business approach, and more optimistic about the future. The children had transformed the fruit stand into something unique in Greenfield Valley. Emma, with her natural artistic ability, created beautiful hand-drawn signs advertising daily specials and seasonal produce. Her artwork attracted attention from passers-by, who often stopped just to admire her colorful depictions of smiling apples and dancing carrots. Jake had developed an impressive understanding of the business side of fruit vending. He tracked which product sold best on which days, calculated profit margins with the help of a calculator Michael had bought him, and even suggested new products based on customer requests. "Dad, Mrs. Patterson asked if we could get some of those fancy organic strawberries like they sell at the supermarket in Preston," Jake reported one afternoon. "She said she'd pay double the price for local organic fruit." Michael considered this seriously. Organic produce would require finding new suppliers and cost more up front, but the profit margins could be significantly higher. "What do you think, business partner? Should we try it?" Jake's chest puffed with pride at being called a business partner. "I think we should start small, maybe just strawberries, and see how they sell." Tommy, now 4.5, had become the unofficial mascot of the fruit stand. His bright smile and chatty personality charmed customers, many of whom started coming by just to see what cute thing Tommy would say that day. He had learned to count to 20 by helping sort apples and could identify most common fruits by sight and smell. "This apple is red like my fire truck," Tommy announced to Mrs. Davis one morning, holding up a particularly shiny red delicious apple. "That's right, sweetie," Mrs. Davis replied, ruffling his hair. "And I bet it tastes as good as it looks." The organic strawberries were an immediate success. Word spread quickly through Greenfield Valley about the Williams family's commitment to quality, and soon Michael was getting requests for other organic and locally sourced products. He partnered with 3 local farms to provide seasonal vegetables, expanding the fruit stand into more of a farmer's market experience. By July, daily revenue had increased by 40% compared to the same period the previous year. Michael was able to hire Mrs. Franklin, a retired teacher, to help watch the children during the busiest hours of the day. This allowed him to focus more on customer service and business development while ensuring the children were safe and engaged. The extra income meant small but significant improvements in their quality of life. Michael could afford to replace Tommy's worn-out shoes with new ones, buy Emma a set of professional colored pencils for her artwork, and get Jake a calculator with more advanced functions for his business calculations. More importantly, the success gave Michael confidence that he could provide for his family's future needs. He started thinking about college funds for the children, about maybe expanding the business, about building something lasting that could support them for years to come. One August evening, as they were cleaning up after an especially busy Saturday, Emma made an observation that surprised Michael. "Dad, remember when Mom used to complain about coming to the fruit stand? She said it was boring and beneath her." Michael nodded, remembering Sarah's frequent complaints about having to help with the family business. "Well, I love being here," Emma continued. "I love helping customers, and I love making the signs, and I love how people smile when they see us working together. Why didn't Mom like it?" Michael considered his answer carefully. "Sometimes people want different things out of life, sweetheart. Mom wanted to live in a big city and wear fancy clothes and go to expensive restaurants. There's nothing wrong with wanting those things, but she couldn't appreciate what we have here." Jake, who had been listening while he counted the day's receipts, looked up from his calculator. "Her loss," he said simply. That night, after the children were asleep, Michael sat on the front porch of their house with a beer and really looked at what they had built together. The fruit stand was more than a business now. It was a gathering place for the community. The children were happy, healthy, and learning valuable life skills. They had weathered the worst crisis of their lives and emerged stronger. For the first time since Sarah left, Michael felt genuinely grateful for her departure. Not because it hadn't been painful, but because it had forced him to discover capabilities he never knew he had, and to build a relationship with his children that was deeper and more authentic than anything he had experienced before. He thought about Sarah sometimes, wondered if she was happy in Chicago with her businessman. He hoped she was, for her own sake, but he no longer felt any desire for her to come back. They had built something better without her. The fall of their first year without Sarah brought unexpected opportunities. Michael had been contacted by several restaurants in Preston, the larger town 20 miles away, asking if he could supply them with fresh produce. The reputation of Williams' family fruit stand had spread beyond Greenfield Valley, carried by customers who worked in Preston and told their friends about the exceptional quality and service they received. Michael's first restaurant client was Giuseppe's Italian Kitchen, a family-owned establishment that prided itself on using fresh local ingredients. Giuseppe Martinelli, the owner, had heard about Michael's organic strawberries from one of his regular customers and wanted to discuss a weekly supply arrangement. "I've been looking for a reliable vendor who understands quality," Giuseppe explained during their first meeting. "My customers can tell the difference between fresh, local produce and the stuff that's been sitting in a warehouse for weeks." The contract with Giuseppe's was modest but steady. 50 pounds of mixed vegetables and fruits each week, delivered every Tuesday morning. But it represented something much more significant than the additional $400 per week it brought in. It was validation that Michael's commitment to quality was creating real value in the marketplace. Jake, now 10, was fascinated by this expansion into wholesale business. He created a notebook where he tracked deliveries, recorded customer feedback, and calculated the profit margins on different products. His mathematical skills were advancing rapidly, driven by real-world applications that made numbers meaningful rather than abstract. "Dad, if we could get 5 more restaurants like Giuseppe's, we could probably afford to buy that refrigerated truck you've been talking about," Jake calculated one evening. "And with a refrigerated truck, we could deliver to restaurants as far away as the state capital." Michael was constantly amazed by his son's business acumen. "You're thinking like an entrepreneur, buddy, but we need to make sure we can handle the customers we have before we take on too many more." Emma had started a customer suggestion box at the fruit stand, decorated with her artwork and filled with ideas from regular customers. Many of the suggestions were impractical, like the request for tropical fruits that couldn't grow in their climate. But others led to successful additions to their inventory. One suggestion that caught Michael's attention came from Mrs. Patterson, who had asked for organic strawberries months earlier. She wrote, "Would you consider making fresh fruit baskets for special occasions? I would love to give my sister a beautiful basket of your fruit for her birthday instead of flowers." Gift baskets had never occurred to Michael, but the idea made immediate sense. Fruit was healthier than candy, more practical than flowers, and could be beautifully presented with Emma's artistic touch. They started offering custom fruit baskets in September, and by October they were filling 5 to 10 orders per week. Emma took charge of the basket presentation, creating beautiful arrangements with colorful ribbons and hand-drawn cards. She developed a system for different occasions: bright colors for birthdays, elegant presentations for business gifts, cheerful arrangements for get-well wishes. Tommy, now 5 and starting kindergarten, had learned to read simple words and insisted on writing his name on the gift cards for fruit baskets. His careful, childish handwriting became a charming signature that customers specifically requested. The success of the gift baskets led to another breakthrough. Father O'Brien asked if Michael could provide fruit for the church's annual harvest festival, and the event introduced their products to families from 3 neighboring towns. Orders poured in after the festival, keeping them busy through the end of October. By November, Michael realized that they had outgrown their current setup. The original fruit stand shed was too small for their expanded inventory, and they needed more storage space for the restaurant deliveries and gift basket supplies. He began looking into renting a small warehouse space that could serve as both storage and a proper workspace for their growing operation. The warehouse he found was perfect. A 1,500 square foot space in a light industrial area just outside Greenfield Valley. It had loading dock access for delivery trucks, plenty of storage space, and room for a small office. The rent was manageable with their increased revenue, and the space would allow them to grow even further. When Michael showed the warehouse to the children, their reactions were everything he could have hoped for. "It's like a real business," Emma exclaimed, running through the empty space and imagining where they could set up different work areas. Jake immediately started planning the layout, calculating how much inventory they could store and how efficiently they could organize the space for maximum productivity. Tommy was most excited about the office space, declaring that he would have his own desk where he could do important business work, like his big brother. Moving into the warehouse felt like crossing a threshold from a small family business into something with genuine growth potential. Michael hired 2 part-time employees, Mrs. Franklin, who had been helping with the children, and Carlos Martinez, a recent high school graduate who was strong enough to handle the heavy lifting and reliable enough to trust with deliveries. The warehouse also allowed them to offer something new: pre-packed produce boxes for busy families. For $25, customers could pick up a box of mixed seasonal fruits and vegetables, saving them time while ensuring they had healthy options for the week. The convenience proved popular with working parents and elderly customers who had difficulty shopping frequently. By December, exactly 9 months after Sarah's departure, Williams Family Fruit Stand had evolved into Williams Family Produce, with a warehouse operation, multiple revenue streams, and a growing reputation throughout the region. Michael had not only replaced Sarah's contribution to the household, he had built something far more substantial than what they had before. Most importantly, the children were thriving. Emma's artwork was being displayed in local businesses, and she had been commissioned to create a mural for the children's section of the public library. Jake had been accepted into an advanced mathematics program at school and was already talking about studying business in college. Tommy was reading at a first-grade level, despite being in kindergarten, and charmed everyone he met with his enthusiasm and curiosity. One evening in December, as they were decorating their Christmas tree, Emma made an observation that perfectly captured what they had accomplished. "Dad, remember last Christmas when Mom kept complaining about everything? The tree was too small. The decorations were too old. The presents weren't good enough." Michael nodded, remembering Sarah's dissatisfaction with what he had thought was a perfectly nice Christmas. "This year feels different," Emma continued. "Everything feels warmer." like we're really together instead of just in the same house. Jake, hanging an ornament he had made in school, added, "It's because we're a team now. Before it felt like Mom was always disappointed in us. Now it feels like we're all working toward the same thing." Michael looked at his children, confident, capable, and genuinely happy, and felt a contentment he hadn't experienced in years. They weren't just surviving without Sarah, they were flourishing. And the best part was, they were just getting started. Almost a year after Sarah left, she appeared at the warehouse on a cold February morning, looking desperate and defeated. Her expensive clothes hung loose on her thin frame, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. "Michael," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I made a terrible mistake." Michael stepped outside, maintaining distance. "What do you want, Sarah?" "David left me for someone younger. I lost everything. The apartment, the money, the life he promised." Tears streamed down her face. "I want to come home. I want our family back." Before Michael could respond, Jake appeared in the doorway. At 10, he looked older, more serious. When he saw Sarah, his expression hardened. "What's she doing here?" Jake asked, his voice cold. "I came to apologize," Sarah said desperately. "To ask for another chance. You left us when we needed you most," Jake replied. "Now you're back because you need us. That's not how families work." Emma and Tommy joined them, Emma staying close to Michael while Tommy stared at Sarah with confusion. "I don't remember you," Tommy said innocently, and Sarah's face crumpled. "Kids, go back inside," Michael said gently. After they left, he turned to Sarah. "They don't know you anymore. Tommy was barely 5 when you left. They've learned to be a family without you. Please," Sarah begged, "let me try to earn their forgiveness." Michael considered this. "If you want to try, it has to be on their terms. No pressure, no expectations. And if you hurt them again, you won't get another chance." Sarah's visits were awkward and often painful. She brought inappropriate gifts, toys for children who had grown beyond them, trying to buy affection that couldn't be purchased. During her 3rd visit, she made a crucial mistake. "I was suffocating here," she told Emma. "Surely you understand I needed to follow my dreams." "Your dreams were more important than us?" Emma asked quietly. The visits became tense. The children dreaded them, and Michael noticed how they disrupted the family's natural rhythm. After 2 months of uncomfortable encounters, Sarah's frustration exploded. "They're my children too," she shouted during an argument with Michael that the kids overheard. "I have rights." "You have the rights you earn," Jake said, appearing in the doorway with Emma and Tommy. "And you left yours at the bus station." The directness of his words, spoken with painful maturity, finally broke through Sarah's delusions. She left in tears and didn't return for weeks. When she finally called again, Michael set clearer boundaries. "The children will see you, but only as someone who used to be part of our family, not as their mother who's coming home." That position is no longer available. Sarah's next visit was different. She helped with warehouse work without trying to insert herself into the children's lives. She listened instead of demanding. Slowly, very slowly, she began to earn small moments of acceptance. "She can visit sometimes," Emma finally said after a month of better interactions. "But this is our real family now." The 2nd anniversary of Sarah's departure passed almost without notice, marked not by sadness or reflection on loss, but by celebration of how far the Williams family had come. Williams Family Produce had grown from a roadside fruit stand into a regional supplier serving 15 restaurants, a weekly farmers market, and a growing online business for gift baskets and specialty produce boxes. Jake, now 11 and in 6th grade, had become Michael's true business partner. His mathematics skills had advanced to the point where he was handling profit and loss calculations, inventory management, and even basic business forecasting. His teacher had recommended him for a gifted program that would allow him to take high school mathematics courses while still in middle school. "Dad, I've been thinking about our expansion plans," Jake said one evening as they reviewed the day's receipts. "If we want to add the restaurant in the state capital to our client list, we're going to need that refrigerated truck. And based on our current profit margins, we could finance it without significantly impacting our cash flow." Michael still marveled at hearing business analysis from his 11-year-old son. What about insurance and maintenance costs? I factored those in. The additional revenue from being able to deliver to more distant clients would offset the additional expenses within 8 months. Emma, now 9, had discovered that her artistic talents extended beyond drawing and painting. She had taught herself basic graphic design using the computer Michael had bought for the business, and was creating professional quality marketing materials that rivaled anything produced by expensive advertising agencies. Her gift basket presentations had become locally famous, with customers often requesting specific color schemes and themes for special occasions. She had also started a social media presence for the business, posting daily photos of fresh produce and behind-the-scenes glimpses of their family operation that attracted followers from across the region. "Look, Dad," Emma said, showing Michael her tablet one evening. "Our Instagram account has 3,000 followers now, and people are sharing our posts. Mrs. Rodriguez from the next town over said she drove here just because she saw our photos online." Tommy, now 6 and in 1st grade, had become the family's quality control specialist and customer relations expert. His natural curiosity and engaging personality made him perfect for testing new products and gauging customer reactions. He could identify when an apple was past its prime by touch and smell, and customers often sought out his recommendations for the best fruits for specific purposes. "Mr. Patterson wants to know which apples are best for making pie," Tommy announced one Saturday. "I told him the tart ones, but which kinds are tart?" "Granny Smith and Braeburn," Jake called out from across the warehouse. "Tell him if he wants extra tartness to mix in some pippin apples." The warehouse itself had been expanded twice to accommodate their growing inventory and operations. They now employed 6 part-time workers, including 2 high school students, a retired farmer who specialized in organic produce selection, and Mrs. Franklin, who had become their unofficial human resources manager. Michael had also started offering apprenticeships to young people interested in learning about sustainable agriculture and small business operations. The program attracted students from the community college and even some from the state university who were studying business or agricultural science. "You're creating something special here," said Dr. Patricia Henley, a business professor who had brought a group of her students to study Williams Family Produce as an example of successful small business growth. "This isn't just a family business. It's a model for community-based economic development." The financial success was gratifying, but what truly pleased Michael was how the business had become a platform for his children to develop skills, confidence, and a strong work ethic. They weren't just helping with a family business. They were learning to be entrepreneurs, problem solvers, and community leaders. Jake had started a business club at his school, teaching other students basic financial literacy and entrepreneurship skills. Emma was mentoring younger students in art and design and had been commissioned to create murals for 2 local businesses. Tommy had become something of a local celebrity, with his picture appearing in the town newspaper as Greenfield Valley's youngest produce expert. Sarah's visits had settled into a comfortable routine. She came by twice a month, helped with whatever tasks needed attention, and had gradually built individual relationships with each child that were based on mutual respect rather than obligation or guilt. "I'm proud of all of you," she told Michael during one of her visits. "I know I don't have the right to take any credit for how wonderful they've turned out, but I'm grateful that I get to know them as the people they've become." "They're pretty amazing," Michael agreed. "All 3 of them are going to change the world in their own ways." That prediction seemed to be coming true already. Jake had been invited to speak at a regional conference on youth entrepreneurship. Emma's artwork was being featured in a gallery showing of emerging young artists. Tommy had been asked to be the poster child for a campaign promoting healthy eating in schools. But perhaps the most significant development was the attention they were receiving from outside their region. A Food Network television show had contacted them about featuring Williams Family Produce in an episode about family businesses that were making a difference in their communities. "They want to film here for 3 days," Michael explained to the children after receiving the producer's call. They'd interview all of us, show how the business operates, and tell our story on national television. Jake immediately began analyzing the potential benefits and risks. It could bring us a lot of new customers, but it might also create more demand than we can handle. Emma was excited about the creative possibilities. We could design special displays for the filming, and maybe they'd feature some of my artwork. Tommy was most interested in the practical details. Will the TV people want to try our fruit? We should make sure we have the really good stuff that day. After much discussion, they decided to participate in the television show. The filming would take place in 6 months, giving them time to prepare and ensure they could handle any increase in business that might result from the national exposure. As Michael looked around the warehouse that evening, watching his children work together on their various projects with the easy cooperation that had become their trademark, he felt a contentment that went deeper than business success or financial security. They had not just survived the crisis of Sarah's abandonment, they had used it as a foundation to build something extraordinary. The children were growing into remarkable young people who combined business acumen with artistic talent, intellectual curiosity with practical skills, and individual ambition with deep family loyalty. "Dad," Emma said, looking up from the poster she was designing for their farmers market booth, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if Mom hadn't left?" Michael considered the question seriously. "Sometimes. But I think we became who we were meant to be. Maybe we needed to go through that challenge to discover what we were really capable of." Jake nodded. "Plus, if she hadn't left, we might never have learned that we could depend on ourselves and each other for anything." Tommy, who was sorting apples with the focused concentration he brought to every task, added his own perspective. "And we might not have learned how to make the best fruit baskets in the whole state." Michael laughed, pulling all 3 children into a group hug that was both celebration and promise. They had built something together that was stronger than what they had lost, and they were just getting started. The television filming turned out to be a transformative experience for the Williams family. The Food Network crew arrived in Greenfield Valley on a crisp October morning, bringing professional lighting equipment, multiple cameras, and a production team that was genuinely impressed by what they found. "This is exactly the kind of story our viewers love," explained Rebecca Martinez, the show's producer. "A family that turned adversity into opportunity, built something meaningful from the ground up, and stayed true to their values while achieving success." The filming took place over 3 days, capturing every aspect of their operation, from Jake's sophisticated inventory management to Tommy's customer interactions, from Emma's artistic marketing materials to Michael's relationships with their restaurant clients. The cameras followed them through a typical day at the warehouse, a delivery run to Giuseppe's restaurant, and their Saturday farmers market setup. What emerged from the filming was not just a business story, but a portrait of a family that had redefined itself through shared purpose and mutual support. The children's competence and confidence were obvious to viewers, as was the genuine affection and respect they had for each other and their father. "Tell me about the day your mom left," Rebecca asked Jake during his individual interview. Jake, now 11, but speaking with the wisdom of someone much older, thought carefully before answering. "It was the worst day and the best day. Worst because it hurt and we were scared. Best because it made us realize we were stronger than we thought." Emma's interview focused on her artwork and how the business had given her a platform to develop her talents. "I never would have learned graphic design or marketing if we hadn't needed those skills for the business. Mom leaving meant I had to help more, and helping more made me better at things I didn't even know I could do." Tommy's interview was predictably charming, with the 6-year-old explaining his fruit selection techniques with the seriousness of a professional sommelier. "You have to smell the apples here," he said, pointing to the stem end. "And if they smell sweet and fresh, they taste good. If they smell funny, they're too old." Michael's interview was more emotional, particularly when discussing how his relationship with his children had deepened through their shared challenges. "Losing Sarah forced me to become a better father," he said. "I couldn't just be the provider anymore. I had to be the nurturer, the teacher, the cheerleader, the disciplinarian. And in doing all of that, I discovered that my children are the most remarkable people I've ever known." The episode, titled Growing Together: How One Family Turned Loss into Legacy, aired 3 months later and created an immediate sensation. Within hours of the broadcast, Williams Family Produce's website crashed from the volume of visitors trying to place orders. Their phone rang constantly with requests for gift baskets, produce boxes, and consulting services from other family businesses wanting to replicate their success. "Dad, we got 47 online orders just this morning," Emma reported, checking their website analytics. "And people are calling from as far away as California and New York." The sudden surge in demand created both opportunities and challenges. They had to quickly expand their shipping capabilities to handle national orders, hire additional staff to manage the increased volume, and develop new systems to maintain quality while scaling up production. Jake rose to the occasion by creating detailed growth projections and operational plans. "Based on current demand trends, we'll need to double our warehouse space within 6 months and hire at least 10 more employees," he calculated. "But the profit margins on national shipping are high enough to justify the expansion costs." Emma threw herself into developing the online presence needed to serve a national customer base. She created virtual tours of their operation, developed educational content about seasonal eating and sustainable agriculture, and managed their social media accounts with the skill of a professional marketing executive. Tommy became their unofficial quality assurance director, insisting on personally inspecting every order that went out to ensure it met their standards. His attention to detail and natural perfectionism made him ideally suited for this role. The national attention also brought recognition from business and agricultural organizations. Michael was invited to speak at conferences on family business management, sustainable agriculture, and rural economic development. The children were featured in articles about youth entrepreneurship and the value of involving children in family businesses. "Williams Family Produce represents everything we hope to see in American small business," said Senator Patricia Williams, no relation, when she visited their operation as part of a tour of successful rural businesses. "This is a family that has created jobs, supported their community, and raised the next generation of business leaders." The expansion required finding a larger facility, and after much searching, they discovered a perfect property just outside Greenfield Valley. The new space included a 12,000 square foot warehouse, office space, a commercial kitchen for value-added products, and enough land for them to start growing some of their own specialty produce. Moving to the new facility felt like graduating to a completely different level of business operation. They now employed 22 people full-time and had contracts with restaurants in 4 states. Their gift basket business had grown to include corporate clients and luxury hotels, and they were developing their own line of specialty preserves and dried fruits. But the most significant change was in how the children saw themselves and their futures. Jake had begun talking about studying business and agricultural economics in college, with plans to eventually expand Williams Family Produce into a national brand. Emma was considering art school but wanted to focus on commercial design and marketing. Tommy, still only 6, declared his intention to become the best fruit expert in the world. "Sometimes I feel like we're living someone else's life," Michael confided to Father O'Brien during one of the priest's regular visits. 3 years ago, I was a single father struggling to keep a fruit stand going. Now we're running $1 million business and getting recognized as a model for other families. You're living the life you built through hard work, faith, and love, Father O'Brien replied. God has a way of turning our greatest challenges into our greatest blessings, but only if we're willing to do the work. The success brought new opportunities and new responsibilities. Michael was appointed to the state's Small Business Advisory Council and asked to serve on the board of the National Association of Family Farmers. The children were invited to speak at youth leadership conferences and entrepreneurship camps. But through all the growth and recognition, they maintained the values and relationships that had made their success possible. Every Friday evening, they still gathered for family dinner and business review, discussing the week's challenges and planning for the next week's goals. They still worked together in the warehouse on Saturdays, with everyone contributing according to their abilities and interests. Sarah's role in their lives had also evolved. She now visited monthly and had become something like a family friend who supported their endeavors without trying to reclaim a central position. She was proud of what they had accomplished and had found her own path as a teacher in a nearby town, working with students who came from difficult family situations. "I know I'll never be their mother the way I should have been," she told Michael during one of her visits, "but I'm grateful I get to know them and support them as the incredible people they've become. And I'm grateful you never gave up on helping them reach their potential." As their third year without Sarah as a family unit came to a close, Michael reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. They had not just overcome abandonment and built a successful business. They had created a model for how families could work together, support each other, and achieve things that none of them could have accomplished alone. "Dad," Jake said one evening as they locked up the new warehouse, "do you think we'll keep growing like this forever?" Michael looked at his son, who at 11 was already thinking like a CEO, and smiled. "I think we'll keep growing as long as we remember why we started, to take care of each other and serve our community. The size of the business doesn't matter as much as staying true to those values. And having the best fruit in the whole world," Tommy added, making everyone laugh. As they walked to their car under the stars of a clear December night, Michael felt the deep satisfaction of a man who had built something lasting and meaningful. But more than that, he felt the joy of a father who had raised children who were prepared to make their own mark on the world while never forgetting the lessons they had learned together. 5 years after Sarah's departure, Williams Family Produce had become a regional institution and a national example of successful family business operations. The company now employed 43 people, served clients in 8 states, and had been featured in magazines ranging from Family Business Monthly to Agricultural Innovation Quarterly. Michael, now 38 and more confident in his role as both father and CEO than he had ever imagined possible, was in his office reviewing quarterly reports when his assistant announced that he had unexpected visitors. "There's a couple here to see you," Maria Santos, their office manager, said through the intercom. "They say they're from Chicago, and they're interested in discussing a business opportunity." Michael was accustomed to visits from potential clients, suppliers, and consultants, so he told Maria to send them in. What he wasn't prepared for was the sight of David Carter, the man who had lured Sarah away from her family 5 years earlier. David looked older and less polished than Michael remembered from the photographs Sarah had shown him during her brief return attempt. His suit was expensive, but showed signs of wear, and his confident demeanor seemed forced. Beside him stood a woman Michael didn't recognize, younger than Sarah, professionally dressed, with the sharp look of someone accustomed to getting what she wanted. "Mr. Williams," David said, extending his hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you for seeing us. I'm David Carter, and this is my business partner, Jennifer Walsh. We'd like to discuss a proposition that could be very lucrative for all of us." And Michael shook their hands but remained standing, not inviting them to sit. Something about David's presence in his office felt like a violation, though he couldn't quite articulate why. "What kind of proposition?" Michael asked, keeping his voice professionally neutral. Jennifer took the lead, pulling out a folder filled with documents and charts. "We represent a consortium of investors who are interested in acquiring successful family food businesses and scaling them for national distribution. Williams Family Produce has come to our attention as exactly the kind of operation that could benefit from significant capital investment and professional management. We're prepared to offer you $12 million for full ownership of the company," David added, "plus consulting contracts for you and your children to ensure a smooth transition." Michael felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. $12 million was more money than he had ever imagined having, enough to secure his children's futures and provide opportunities he had never dreamed possible. But something about the offer felt wrong, like a trap disguised as a gift. "That's a substantial offer," Michael said carefully. "What exactly would happen to our current employees and operations?" Jennifer's smile became slightly less warm. "We would evaluate all personnel and operations for efficiency and profitability. Some positions might be redundant after restructuring, but that's normal in any acquisition." "Restructuring," Michael repeated, What kind of restructuring? David jumped in with the enthusiasm of someone making a sales pitch. Large-scale food distribution requires centralized operations, automated systems, standardized products. We'd probably move the main operations to a facility outside Chicago where we can achieve better economies of scale. And Greenfield Valley would maintain a small retail presence, possibly as a boutique operation for local customers, Jennifer said dismissively. But the real growth potential is in mass market distribution. Michael understood now why the offer felt like a trap. These people wanted to buy Williams Family Produce and turn it into something completely different, a generic food distribution company that happened to use their name and reputation. The personal relationships, the community connections, the family involvement that made their business special would all be eliminated in favor of efficiency and profit margins. I need to think about this, Michael said, not wanting to give a definitive answer until he had time to discuss it with his children. Of course, David said, standing to leave. But I should mention that this type of opportunity doesn't stay available indefinitely. Other investors are looking at similar businesses in your market segment. After they left, Michael sat in his office trying to process what had just happened. $12 million was life-changing money, but accepting it would mean destroying everything they had built together. It would mean putting 43 people out of work, abandoning the community that had supported them, and reducing his children's education in business and life to a consulting fee. That evening at dinner, Michael presented the offer to Jake, Emma, and Tommy without editorial comment, wanting to hear their thoughts before sharing his own. Jake, now 14 and a high school sophomore taking college-level business courses, immediately began analyzing the financial implications. $12 million is definitely above market value for a business our size. They must see potential we haven't fully realized yet. Emma, now 12 and increasingly sophisticated in her understanding of marketing and brand value, focused on different concerns. But Dad, if they change everything about how we operate, it won't be Williams Family Produce anymore. It'll just be another big company using our name. Tommy, now 9 and still the family's quality control expert, asked the most practical question. Would we still get to work with the fruit every day? Michael explained what David and Jennifer had said about restructuring, automation, and centralized operations. As he talked, he watched his children's expressions change from interest to understanding to rejection. They want to buy our name and our reputation but throw away everything that made them valuable, Jake said with disgust. That's not a business deal, it's theft. What about all our employees? Emma asked. Mrs. Franklin has been with us since the beginning. Carlos has 3 kids and just bought a house. They can't just fire everyone because it's more efficient. Tommy's response was characteristically direct. I don't like those people. They didn't smell right. Michael smiled at his youngest son's instinctive assessment. You know what, buddy? I don't think they smelled right either. The family discussion continued for over an hour, with each of them raising different concerns about the offer. But ultimately, their conclusion was unanimous. Williams Family Produce was not for sale at any price because it wasn't just a business. It was their family's identity, their community's anchor, and their employees' livelihood. Besides, Jake said with a grin, if they think we're worth $12 million now, imagine what we'll be worth in 10 years when we've expanded to 20 states. The next morning, Michael called David and Jennifer to decline their offer. Their response was swift and revealing. You're making a mistake, Jennifer said coldly. Family businesses that refuse to evolve get crushed by larger competitors. We're offering you a chance to cash out while you're still successful. And what happens if we prefer to stay successful on our own terms? Michael asked. Then you'll find out how difficult it can be to compete against companies with real resources and professional management, David replied. His friendly facade completely dropped. After hanging up, Michael realized that David and Jennifer weren't just disappointed investors, they were competitors who had hoped to eliminate Williams Family Produce by buying it. Their consortium was probably planning to acquire several family food businesses and consolidate them under corporate management. The attempted acquisition had been an education in itself, teaching the children about the pressures that successful businesses face and the importance of staying true to their values even when offered apparently attractive alternatives. "You know what this means?" Emma said at their next family meeting. "We need to get even stronger so that companies like theirs can't threaten us or our community." Jake nodded. "We should start thinking about how to help other family businesses in our area. If we work together, we're all harder to buy out or push out." Tommy suggested the most practical next step. "We should tell everyone what those people wanted to do so other families know to be careful." Over the following months, Michael did exactly that. He spoke at regional business association meetings about the importance of family businesses resisting buyout pressures that would harm their communities. Williams Family Produce began partnering with other family operations to share resources, coordinate marketing, and provide mutual support against corporate competition. The experience with David Carter had been unsettling, but it had also clarified their priorities and strengthened their resolve. They weren't just running a business. They were preserving a way of life that valued relationships over efficiency, community over profit margins, and family over corporate structure. "Dad," Jake said one evening as they reviewed plans for their next expansion, "do you think David Carter knows that Mom is teaching school here now?" Michael considered the question. "I don't know, but I hope for her sake that he doesn't try to contact her. She's built a good life for herself, and she doesn't need him disrupting it again." As it turned out, Sarah had heard about David's visit through the local grapevine and was as appalled as anyone by his attempt to buy and dismantle the business her children had helped build. "I'm proud of you for turning him down," she told Michael during her next visit. "What you've built here is worth more than money. It's worth preserving." Looking back on the failed acquisition attempt, Michael realized it had been another test of their family's strength and values. Like Sarah's abandonment 5 years earlier, David's offer had challenged them to define what really mattered to them. And like that earlier test, they had emerged stronger and more unified than before. By the 6th anniversary of Sarah's departure, Williams Family Produce had evolved from a family business into a family enterprise that was reshaping how people thought about sustainable agriculture, community development, and youth involvement in business. The children, now 15, 13, and 10, were no longer just helping with the family business. They were actively leading different aspects of it while pursuing their own educational and personal goals. Jake, now a junior in high school, had been accepted into an early admission program at the State University's business school. He would begin taking college courses part-time while finishing high school, with a focus on agricultural economics and sustainable business practices. His senior thesis project would be a comprehensive analysis of Williams Family Produce's growth and its impact on rural economic development. "I want to understand not just how we built this business, but how other families could replicate our success in their own communities," Jake explained to a delegation of agricultural extension agents who had come to study their operation. "Success shouldn't be something that only happens by accident or luck. There should be principles and practices that other families can follow." Emma had discovered that her artistic talents combined with her marketing expertise made her a powerful voice for sustainable agriculture and healthy eating. Her social media campaigns for Williams Family Produce had attracted over 50,000 followers, and she had been invited to speak at conferences on youth marketing and digital storytelling. She was also developing her own line of educational materials about seasonal eating and sustainable farming practices. "Art isn't just about making pretty pictures," Emma told a group of middle school students during a career day presentation. "It's about communicating ideas that matter. Every poster I design, every video I create, every photo I post is trying to help people understand why local food and family farming are important." Tommy had become something of a celebrity in agricultural circles as the youngest person ever certified as a master food handler by the State Department of Agriculture. His ability to assess produce quality, understand seasonal variations, and explain complex agricultural concepts in simple terms had made him a sought-after speaker at farming conferences and food industry events. "The secret to good fruit," Tommy told a reporter from Agricultural Weekly magazine, is that the farmer has to care about it like it's going to feed his own family. You can taste the difference when someone really cares. But perhaps the most significant development was the establishment of the Williams Family Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting other family businesses and promoting youth entrepreneurship in rural communities. The foundation provided grants, mentorship, and educational resources to families trying to start or expand agricultural businesses. We were incredibly lucky to have a community that supported us when we needed help, Michael explained at the foundation's inaugural board meeting. Now, we want to be that support system for other families who are facing their own challenges. The foundation's first major project was the Rural Youth Business Academy, a summer program that brought teenagers from farming families to Greenfield Valley for intensive training in business management, marketing, financial planning, and agricultural innovation. Jake served as a student mentor, Emma developed the marketing curriculum, and Tommy taught sessions on quality control and customer service. These kids are amazing, Michael told Sarah during one of her visits, watching a group of teenagers from across the region working on business plans for their family operations. Some of them have ideas that could revolutionize how we think about farming and food distribution. Sarah had become a regular volunteer with the foundation, using her teaching skills to help develop educational materials and mentor young entrepreneurs. Her relationship with her own children had settled into something comfortable and supportive, based on mutual respect rather than traditional parent-child dynamics. I'm proud of what you've all built here, she told Michael. Not just the business, but this whole ecosystem of support and education. You've created something that will help families for generations. The success of Williams Family Produce had also attracted attention from academic researchers studying family business dynamics, rural economic development, and youth involvement in agriculture. Dr. Rebecca Martinez from the State University had been conducting a longitudinal study of their operation for 2 years, documenting how their approach to family business management differed from traditional models. What makes the Williams family unique, Dr. Martinez explained in her preliminary findings, is how they've managed to scale their operation while maintaining the personal relationships and community connections that made them successful in the first place. Most businesses face a choice between growth and authenticity. They've found a way to achieve both. The research had practical applications beyond academic interest. Other family businesses were adopting the Williams model of involving children as genuine partners rather than just helpers, of prioritizing employee welfare alongside profit margins, and of treating business success as a platform for community development rather than just personal wealth accumulation. Michael had been invited to join the board of directors of the National Family Business Association, where he advocated for policies that supported small-scale agriculture and rural economic development. His testimony before congressional committees had helped shape legislation providing tax incentives for family businesses that maintained local employment and supported their communities. Family businesses aren't just economic units, Michael told a Senate subcommittee on rural development. They're the backbone of community life in small towns across America. When we support family businesses, we're supporting the social fabric that holds rural communities together. But the most meaningful recognition came from Greenfield Valley itself. The town council had designated Williams Family Produce as a historic business, acknowledging its role in the community's economic development and cultural identity. A plaque outside their original fruit stand location read, "From this modest beginning, the Williams family built not just a business, but a model for how families can work together to strengthen their community and create opportunities for future generations." The ceremony dedicating the plaque brought together hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by the Williams family's journey. Former employees who had gone on to start their own businesses, students who had been inspired by the children's example, customers who had become friends, and community leaders who had watched a family transform adversity into achievement. 6 years ago, I thought my world was ending, Michael said in his speech at the dedication ceremony, looking out at the crowd that included his children Sarah, and dozens of people who had become part of their extended family. I was wrong. My world wasn't ending, it was beginning. Because sometimes what looks like the worst thing that could happen to you turns out to be exactly what you needed to discover who you really are and what you're really capable of. Jake, Emma, and Tommy stood beside their father during the ceremony, no longer the abandoned children who had once cried for their missing mother, but confident young people who had learned that family isn't just about who stays with you, but about who you choose to build a life with. As the ceremony concluded and people began to mingle, sharing stories and making plans for future collaborations, Michael felt a deep sense of completion. Not because their story was over, but because they had proved that it was possible to take the worst thing that had ever happened to them and transform it into the foundation for something beautiful, meaningful, and lasting. "Dad," Emma said, appearing at his side with her camera, "can we take a family picture by the plaque?" As they posed together, Michael, Jake, Emma, and Tommy, with the bronze plaque behind them and the warehouse that had grown from a fruit stand visible in the background, Michael realized that this was what success really looked like. Not the money in the bank or the awards on the wall, but the faces of his children who had learned that they could overcome anything as long as they faced it together. 10 years after Sarah Williams walked out of her family's life in search of something better, she stood in the parking lot of Williams Family Produce corporate headquarters, watching her former husband and children prepare for the company's 10th anniversary celebration. The modest warehouse that had impressed her during her first attempted return had been replaced by a sprawling complex that employed over 120 people and served as the distribution hub for a network of family farms across the Midwest. Jake, now 19 and a junior at the State University, majoring in agricultural business and sustainable development, had just returned from a semester studying international food systems in Costa Rica. His senior thesis on family farm cooperatives had been selected for presentation at the International Conference on Sustainable Agriculture, and he had already been accepted to graduate programs at 3 prestigious universities. "Dad, the delegation from the Department of Agriculture is here," Jake announced, walking with the confident stride of someone who had been managing complex business operations since he was 10 years old. "They want to discuss our proposal for the Rural Family Business Development Initiative." Emma, now 17 and a high school senior, had just been awarded a full scholarship to study commercial art and marketing at the state's top design school. Her portfolio included marketing campaigns that had helped launch 6 other family businesses and a series of educational videos about sustainable farming that had been viewed over 2 million times on social media. "The documentary crew wants to interview us in 20 minutes, Emma told her father, checking the schedule on her tablet with the efficiency of a professional event coordinator. "And the reporter from Agricultural Business Weekly wants to talk about how we've maintained our family culture while scaling up operations." Tommy, now 13 and an 8th grader, had just been featured on the cover of Young Entrepreneur magazine as America's youngest agricultural consultant. Despite his age, he regularly advised other family farms on quality control, customer relations, and product development. His natural ability to connect with people and his encyclopedic knowledge of produce had made him a valuable asset in their consulting division. "Mrs. Patterson wants to know if we're still planning to expand the educational programs next year," Tommy reported, his voice deeper now but still carrying the enthusiasm that had charmed customers since he was 5 years old. "She says her grandson wants to attend the Rural Youth Business Academy when he's old enough." Michael, now 43 and recognized as one of the nation's leading experts on family business development, stood in the middle of the activity with the calm confidence of someone who had learned to navigate success as skillfully as he had once navigated crisis. He had been invited to serve on presidential advisory committees, had authored 2 books on family business management, and was regularly consulted by organizations worldwide seeking to replicate their model of community-based economic development. But as he watched his children moving through their roles with competence and grace, Michael's greatest pride wasn't in the external recognition or financial success. It was in seeing how they had grown into people who used their talents not just for personal achievement, but for serving others and strengthening their community. The anniversary celebration itself was unlike any corporate event Sarah had ever imagined. Instead of the formal, sterile atmosphere of typical business functions, this felt like a community festival. Current and former employees had brought their families. Customers had traveled from across the region to attend. Representatives from the dozens of family businesses that Williams Family Produce had helped launch were present to share their own success stories. Dr. Patricia Henley, the business professor who had first studied their operation years earlier, served as the keynote speaker. Her remarks focused on how the Williams family had proved that business success and social responsibility weren't competing goals, but complementary strategies. The Williams model, Dr. Henley explained to the assembled crowd, has demonstrated that when families work together toward shared goals, they can achieve things that traditional corporate structures simply cannot replicate. They've shown us that the most sustainable businesses are those that invest in their people, their communities, and their values alongside their bottom line. The celebration included presentations from the Rural Family Business Foundation, which had now provided support to over 200 family operations across 12 states. The Williams Family Youth Academy had graduated 437 young entrepreneurs, many of whom had gone on to start their own successful businesses or revitalize their family operations. "We're not just celebrating 10 years of business success," Michael told the crowd during his speech. "We're celebrating proof that families can overcome any challenge when they commit to supporting each other and serving something larger than themselves." As the formal program concluded and people moved into the reception area, Sarah found herself in conversation with several parents whose children had benefited from the Foundation's programs. "Your former husband and children have changed our lives," one mother told her. "My daughter attended the Youth Academy 3 years ago, and she's now running the marketing for our family dairy farm. We went from barely surviving to thriving, and it's because of what they taught her. They taught our son that being from a small town doesn't mean having small dreams," added another parent. "He's at agricultural college now, but he plans to come back and help us expand our operation using what he learned here." Sarah listened to these stories with a mixture of pride and regret. Pride in what her children and Michael had accomplished, regret for the role she had chosen not to play in building it. But the regret was tempered by acceptance and understanding that her departure, painful as it had been necessary for them to discover their true potential. Later in the evening, as the celebration wound down, Sarah found herself alone with Michael for the first time in several years. They stood on the observation deck of the main building, looking out over the complex that had grown from a simple fruit stand. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I had stayed?" Sarah asked quietly. Michael considered the question seriously before answering. "I used to wonder about that a lot, but now I think everything happened exactly the way it needed to. We all became who we were meant to be, even me, especially you. You've found your calling as a teacher. You're helping kids who need stability and support, and you've learned what really matters in life. That's not the person you were 10 years ago." Sarah nodded, thinking about her work with at-risk students and how her own experience with abandoning her family had given her unique insight into helping children cope with family trauma. "I know I'll never be their mother the way I should have been," Sarah said, watching through the windows as Jake, Emma, and Tommy cleaned up after the event with the teamwork that had become their trademark. "But I'm grateful I get to know them as the remarkable people they've become." "They're proud of you too," Michael said. "Emma especially talks about how your teaching work has inspired her to think about using her talents to help other young people. Jake has mentioned wanting to include family crisis recovery in his graduate studies because of what our family went through, and Tommy just likes that you come to his baseball games now." As they prepared to leave that evening, the Williams family gathered in the parking lot for a final group photo. Michael, Jake, Emma, and Tommy, with Sarah standing slightly apart, but included in the frame. The image would later appear in the company's annual report, alongside a caption that read, "Family isn't just about who you're related to, it's about who chooses to support your dreams and celebrate your achievements." Driving home that night, Michael reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this point. 10 years earlier, he had been an abandoned husband and father, terrified that he wouldn't be able to provide for his children or help them heal from their mother's rejection. Now he was the head of a thriving enterprise that employed dozens of people, served thousands of customers, and had inspired hundreds of other families to pursue their own dreams. But the business success, meaningful as it was, wasn't really the point. The point was that 3 children who had been abandoned and hurt had grown into confident, capable, caring adults who were using their talents to make the world better. The point was that a family that had been broken had rebuilt itself stronger than it had ever been before. "Dad," Jake said from the passenger seat, "I've been thinking about after graduation. I know I could go anywhere for graduate school, but I'd like to stay here and help expand the Foundation's programs. There are so many families who could benefit from what we've learned." "I've been thinking the same thing," Emma added from the back seat. "I could go to art school anywhere, but I'd rather use my skills to help families tell their stories and market their businesses. We've proved that you don't have to leave small towns to do important work." Tommy, who had been quiet during the drive, finally spoke up with characteristic directness. "I just want to keep making sure our fruit is the best fruit people ever taste, and maybe teach other kids how to tell good fruit from bad fruit." Michael smiled, listening to his children plan futures that balanced personal ambition with family commitment and community service. This was what he had hoped for when he made the decision 10 years ago to fight for his family instead of giving up. Not just that they would survive Sarah's abandonment, but that they would use the experience to become people who helped others survive their own challenges. As they pulled into the driveway of the same house where Sarah had left her devastating note a decade earlier, Michael felt the deep satisfaction of a man who had kept his promises. He had promised his children that they would be okay, and they were more than okay. He had promised himself that he would not let Sarah's abandonment define their family's future, and instead they had defined it themselves through hard work, mutual support, and unwavering commitment to each other. "You know what?" Emma said as they got out of the car. "I'm glad Mom left." Jake and Tommy looked at her with surprise, and Michael waited to hear her reasoning. "Not because I wanted her to leave," Emma clarified quickly, "but because if she hadn't, we never would have discovered how strong we could be together. We never would have built something that helps other families. We never would have proved that the worst thing that happens to you can become the foundation for the best thing you ever do." Standing in the driveway where their new life had begun with tears and fear, the Williams family embraced each other under the same stars that had witnessed their darkest night and now illuminated their greatest triumph. They had started as a broken family learning to survive. They had become an unbreakable family, teaching others to thrive. And that, Michael realized, was the true meaning of success. Not just overcoming your own challenges, but using what you've learned to help others overcome theirs. Not just building a good life for yourself, but creating opportunities for others to build good lives too. Not just surviving abandonment, but transforming it into a foundation for love, service, and lasting achievement. The fruit stand was long gone, replaced by a corporate headquarters and distribution center. But the values that had sustained them through their darkest days, hard work, mutual support, commitment to quality, and service to community, remained at the heart of everything they had built together. As they walked toward the house where it all began, Michael whispered a quiet thank you to the universe for teaching him that sometimes the end of one story is really just the beginning of a much better one. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share if you enjoyed this story. Comment below and tell us what your favorite part was. Until next time.